Cool conversation with a cool dude, Alex Wagner. Here we go. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman podcast. Everybody, this is Jim Huntsman, your host of the Western Huntsman podcast, coming at you from the Broken Tine studio in Hayden, Idaho, and I'm glad you guys are here. I'm fired up this week. There's so much going on out there, and so much, positive things that have happened in terms of how hunters have come together over some an issue that I'll get into in just a second. But before I do that, I want to talk about our trivia question last week. What a response, man! Got a ton of emails on that one. So the question was, what is it called when a mule deer starts kind of bounding and hopping away? And the answer to that, drum roll, it's called stotting. S-T-O-T-T-I-N-G, stotting. That is the term used when you see those. And you guys have, I'm sure if you've hunted mule deer, you've been there, you've seen that. Where they start to, they're out of here, man. They're getting away from you, and they do this crazy hop, and it's really fun to watch, unless it's a huge buck that's out of range at this point. But no, that's what it's called, stotting. And I appreciate everybody that wrote in on that trivia question, because actually it had some really good conversations that came out of that over email. It was fun talking to everybody on that one, and it's super interesting seeing some of the answers that came in, right or wrong. It was fun just kind of developing a conversation out of it. So nice work, everybody. If you did answer that question, if you wrote in at jim@thewesternhuntsman.com and put either trivia or trivia question, just make sure the word trivia is in the subject line. What I do is I do a search for that subject line, and I roll all those emails into a spreadsheet where I'm going to do a drawing. And that drawing is going to be coming up towards the end of March. I believe we're going to have some Phelps stuff for that one. Going to be cool. So I appreciate it. That is the answer. Stotting. Okay. I want to roll in real quick. We had a situation, and I put out a bonus episode about this, about SB252 out of California, where this Senator Scott Wiener was proposed basically a piece of legislation, SB 252, where they're going to ban bear hunting in the state of California. Totally ridiculous. And this is the stuff that we're up against. And guys, it's been a cool, positive light that I haven't seen for a while that came out of the hunting community and the response. And many of you shared that episode. Thank you for that, because it went a long way. The petition garnered somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 signatures in just a couple of days. A lot of people wrote into Senator Wiener's email address and into his office to express their displeasure with the proposal of banning bear hunting in the state of California. Happy to say that that bill has been pulled. It is no longer viable, and it was pulled, and it's dead on arrival. And that's because of many of you who put their best foot forward and wrote emails and made phone calls and signed the petition and all this other stuff that took place that kind of killed this bill. And that's what we need. We came together. I'm proud to be a hunter this week. We came together as hunters. We came together as a community. We rallied online and made this happen, because this is and I don't want to get too excited, because here's the thing. It was like, I can't remember exactly how Senator Wiener worded it, but basically it's just temporarily pulled, right? It's on the back burner, so to speak, if you will. So what that means is that bill is dead for now, but it is probably and most likely and almost assuredly coming back. And it'll probably be in the next year's legislative session. So we need to be aware. And what I'm going to do on this, from my end, is this. Well, let me restate that. Let me back up a minute. That bill, and this is a case for any hunting style ban, hunting, trapping, any kind of flat out ban on hunting. It always raises an eyebrow for me in a big way. And so when this bill came out and it was introduced, it was like this big surprise, and we all had to be in this reactive mode and approach that in a way that was responsive and playing defense. Guys, I'm sick of doing that. Let's go on the offense. It's time to be proactive instead of reactive when it comes to these threatening legislation pieces like this. It's a bad situation to be in. So what I'm going to be doing, and in terms of, with this particular bill, I sent multiple emails. I made phone calls. We're going to be doing some episodes on this particular bill, the legislation, why it's dangerous, why we can't be asleep at the wheel going forward, for our friends in California. And we can't be shy about crossing state lines with this. I like I said in the bonus episode, I would want our friends in California's help if those kind of bills were ever introduced in our legislatures in some of our western states outside of California. So we just need to make sure that we're returning the favor, kind of ahead of the game. Because they'd have our back, we need to have their back. And California has some wonderful bear hunting. It has a great heritage of hunting that not a lot of people talk about. But there's a lot of great hunters in California that need our help. And just because this bill is dead does not mean that they don't need our help anymore, because they do. And so, again, getting back to that, I just want to kind of be more of a proactive voice versus a reactive voice, and we're going to be addressing a lot of things. I have some things in the works that are going to kind of be going forward throughout this year so that we are prepared next time for legislation like this. And California is not the only place this is happening. We have some rumbling going on in Washington to ban spring bear hunting, and guys, that is how this happens. You've heard the term how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. That's the threat that we have in terms of just being hunters in general, where it might seem like, this faraway distant land is having these troubles with these anti-hunters, but the magnitude of what happens is they're eating the elephant one bite at a time. And so they banned bear hunting in California. They've already banned mountain lion hunting. And now the state spends a shitload of money to try to get these mountain lions under control because they're way out of control. And instead of the revenue of selling mountain lion tags and just having hunters that want to do that, pursue that lifestyle, they took that right away and that freedom away from those hunters, and now California's got this major problem with mountain lions coming into people's yards and eating dogs and all sorts of stuff that's going on. There's tons of information out there on the internet. So the next bite that we're going to take was banned bear hunting. And so when we're sitting in places like Colorado and Idaho and Utah and Wyoming, Montana and Arizona and New Mexico and these other western states, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, when we're sitting in these other western states kind of looking at that thinking, oh, well, that's in California, not an issue for us. Guys, that is an issue for us, because as far-fetched as it may seem that something like that can happen in our states, it's not that far-fetched, because that attitude, that negative outlook on hunting in general as like this great evil of modern society will bleed over into our states. That cultural aspect, and that's what it is it's a cultural issue, and it's new. Being an anti-hunter is a new thing. That is not something that dates back thousands of years like hunting does. Hunting has always been a part of the human experience. And so this newfound cultural thing where it's like this shift of hunting is bad, it's evil, it's cruel to the animals, and these organizations like the Humane Society, the United States, they are making waves in ways that we don't want to have waves happening on. And so we've just got to be super proactive, super cognizant of what these threats are and how they can bleed over into our other states. And so just stay tuned on that. For everybody that tuned into that last episode and or reached out to me via email or social media or whatever the case was, thank you guys for getting involved. I had a lot of discussions over the weekend with a lot of different people from a lot of different states regarding those issues or that specific bill, SB 252. And, lots of concern, lots of things were talked about. So I just want you guys to know that I appreciate you reaching out to me and kind of everybody just kind of came together and teamed up. I met and spoke with people that I've never spoke with before. And created some new relationships, and you guys know, listening to this show, that's what's always important to me. And we're building these networks. We're building a huge network to fight against the anti-hunting movement, and we're just not going to be reactive with this anymore. It's time to start being proactive, and I'm going to come up with some ways, they're already in the works, in which you can all help be proactive with me, and I appreciate that. And that's really what one of the premises of this show, starting this show, was to fight against this. And you've heard the intro, and that's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Another just quick topic of discussion. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this one, just because it is actually, as the time that I'm recording this, it's already in discussion in Montana. The legislature there, SB 143, which takes essentially 60% of non-resident tags and puts them into the outfitter pool, where the outfitters definitely they would have the priority to have their clients get those tags versus just a do-it-yourself hunter. Obviously, as a whole, the Western Huntsman platform is against that kind of thing, because that is against what we are all about here at the Western Huntsman. We are about do-it-yourself. We are about over-the-counter stuff. We are about going to other states and hunting public land and having the freedom to do so, and making it, having these states make it as easy as possible for those of us that are passionate about doing that to have access to those tags and stuff. And so we are definitely opposed to that. I've sent a lot of emails. I made a big post on social media where people could copy and paste the email. You can check that out either on Instagram or Facebook at the Western Huntsman. But again, that one kind of came out of nowhere, and we were surprised, and I just didn't have a lot of time to react to that one. And as I record this, it's being discussed in the Montana state legislation. So we're gonna just kind of monitor that and see where it goes from here. But hopefully, enough people got the message across to the Montana state legislatures that it's not a favorable piece of legislation for all of us do-it-yourself hunters, because there's a lot of us out there. Okay, with that said, guys, I just what a day, what a great day. Woke up and saw that bill SB 252 had been pulled, and that is always great news. Great news. Let's just not get too comfortable with that, because it's coming back, and the time is now to make sure it goes nowhere next time as well. This is going to be just a continuous thing over and over and over again. So we're here for you. You guys are here for us. Sure appreciate everybody's help. So in this episode, I have got my buddy Alex Wagner down in southern Idaho, and jumps on with me. And we go through all sorts of stuff. We recorded this a few weeks ago, and so I've been sitting on this audio for a long time, and finally getting it out there. And we talk about archery hunting, we talk about tags, we talk about ethics, we talk about getting into hunting and problems with the just the atmosphere within the hunting community sometimes that can arise, that I feel like we were able to kind of negate and push back on recently by coming together over SB 252. which, at the time when we recorded this episode, Alex and I, that bill was just not a thing. We didn't know about it yet. So this is a great conversation. He's a great guy. He's got a lot of experience hunting and, has a lot to offer new hunters and old hunters alike. He is the regional director of ISB, Idaho State Bowhunters Association, for one of the southern regions down there, and super passionate about archery hunting and just hunting in general. You get a lot out of it. Hey, if you guys don't mind, if you have not subscribed to the show, these are things I'm learning about this whole podcasting thing, over a year later. It really, really helps the show if you subscribe. If whatever platform you're listening to on this, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Play or whatever, if you wouldn't mind jumping on and hitting subscribe, that really helps us out. So I appreciate that. Thank you guys for your support. January was a record number of downloads, and that is super cool. I thought it would be very difficult to beat the numbers that we had last August, because we had a big month last August, but we actually blew those numbers out of the water by by the time it was said and done, about 1,400 downloads. 1,400 downloads more than we saw in August of last year. So that's a significant number. Thank you guys for that. I appreciate that. Let's get into it with Alex Wagner. Here we go, guys. Thank you. Alex, how you doing, brother?
Good. How are you, Jim?
Hey, I'm not too shabby for a Wednesday night. For those of you in the audience, I've got my buddy Alex Wagner. He is down in southern Idaho, kind of outside of the Idaho Falls area. You're down in Buell, Idaho. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So it's Twin Falls, not Idaho Falls, there, Jim.
Oh, sorry, man. I just asked you that, and I totally screwed it up. Still, see, that's what happens.
I know. Way to go, Space Cadet.
So Alex is he's on the now. What do you do for Idaho State Bowhunters, first of all?
So I'm the Region 4 director. So basically, I take care of the bow clubs that are in Region 4, and I'm kind of the middleman between the bow clubs and bow hunters and the Idaho Fish and Game, and so I'm kind of always constantly going back and forth working with the two groups, and it's 100% volunteer position. So
yeah. So and that's what I wanted to get at. You're one of the directors for Idaho State Bowhunters, and so you're dealing with Scott a lot, huh? Scott Schmid.
Yeah. Yep, Scott Schmidt.
And just for him, I'm gonna call him Old Schmitty, because I think that just kind of irritates him. And if it irritates him,
Old Schmitty.
Old Schmitty.
Old Schmitty.
We said it like 5 times there, Scott. That's for you, brother. So no, that's awesome. And you're a native Idahoan?
Yeah, born and raised.
Okay. And so what we're talking about today, we got together and decided to talk a little bit of bow hunting and talk about, just general hunting topics that I think a lot of people will have some interest in. And Alex is out there a lot. He puts himself out there both on social media and other places, like, being in the Idaho State Bowhunters. He's got a long track record of being a hunter. And we're going to get into all that and dive down all sorts of different topics. We'll see where the conversation leads us. We're not shy. And so we did, however, agree that we're not talking about, because as we're recording, it's Inauguration Day. And this is going to be like, a couple weeks out. But it's Inauguration night. And so we agreed not to talk any politics. And I think we're cool with that, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking that's probably a good thing.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yep.
Okay, Alex, let's kick this off. Give us a little background. Tell us how you grew up, how you got into hunting, and just some general Alex Wagner history, and we'll take it from there.
Cool. So, just like regular childhood, but I had a dad that loved hunting, and my mom, not so much. but she always supported it. And when I was probably,
wait, let me stop you. What did your mom not like about it? Did she not like the hunting? Did she not like the taste of wild game?
It was more along the lines of when it's hunting season, Dad was gone. Like that's just all there was. Just the typical thing that can be a fight in a marriage or a couple. I battle it in my relationship, but it is hard. You got to kind of take and give, and some days really stick your neck out on the chopping block.
Yeah, for sure, man. My wife, she gets burned out sometimes because I hunt a lot, but it's so circumstantial too. Like when my kids were in diapers, I had this one trip where I left her hanging for like a week, where I went out on this deer hunt, and she didn't really know until like the day before. That was pretty messed up for me to do. Mm-hmm. And I've learned how to communicate, that part of it. And so I could totally see that. My mom, what's interesting? You say that. My mom used to get irritated until she got in like with this group of ladies that when it was deer season, they called it Deer Widow Weekend. And all the ladies would get together and they'd like go somewhere, like they'd go to this destination and have a spa day and do, drink wine and all this, whatever women that don't hunt do. That's what they did. And after that, it was cool. So anyway, carry on with your story, man.
So, anyways, I mean, my parents both seen that I was always like this really athletic type of person, but I was never like big into the contact sports. I was actually really good at baseball.
Were you?
Football. Yeah, I'd get plowed over. I was always the little shrimp kid that, didn't matter. I was the guy that got tossed upside down, so it didn't really matter.
Football's a tough subject for me, man.
It is.
I was good at it, but it cut into hunting season so bad that it was a problem for me. I literally quit in high school because it cut into deer season.
Yeah. And so, I got into the archery sports, and my dad, he got me going with it. And then I think he's seen that there was more to, because we used to go to like the little 3D shoots and, the local clubs and stuff. Yeah. And he would see that I would like do good, like something was just kind of missing. I was doing something, but he didn't know how to 100% teach me, but he had a general idea.
Gotcha.
Well, probably one of the greatest elk hunters on the face of the planet. His name's Tim Malone. He, became friends with my dad, and next thing you know, I'm in a car with 5 guys going to shoots, and from there it led to a staff position with Martin Archery when they were good bows, not the crap they sell now. And
so
they had.
Hold on one sec. I just got it. You keep saying things that spark some interest there. This Tim Malone guy, is that what his name was?
Yep.
He's the best elk hunter in the world?
He's probably top 5, I would guess. The guy has shot 39 bulls in Idaho.
Is he still around?
Yeah.
Tell him I'd like to get him on the show, man. I like those old timers that have a lot of stories like that.
We'll see. He's kind of finicky about that kind of subject, but I'll see what I can do.
All right, cool.
But and then next thing you know, Tim almost kind of, in a way, became a different person in my eyes, because I learned a lot of crap from him, but at the same time, he was also the first to chew on me too if I did something stupid. Like it almost kind of became like a weird second father figure, I guess, so to speak. And that's not even the right term either, even though I know he doesn't have kids, but I still hang out with him. We go horn hunting all the time, go elk hunting, and probably the craziest elk hunting story I've ever had is with him.
I want to get into that story if you don't mind sharing that. But when When he was chewing India and he's like kind of teaching you, taking you under his wings kind of thing, how did you take that? Well, actually, before you answer that, how old are you, Alex?
So I am 31 now.
Okay.
And I've known Tim since I was probably 12, somewhere in there.
Okay. How did you take it? Like from my perspective, those older guys that when like they had this way of teaching that could come across, I think, to a lot of people as like brash, right? And not super polite or whatever. But for me, I learned a lot from dudes like that. How was it for you?
To me, it was just like if I screwed up and he, said something, like he didn't like harp on you or anything like major bad, but he definitely you could definitely hear like a tone change in his voice.
Yeah.
And that's when you knew you screwed up. But at the same time, like at the time, you're kind of like, oh, well, but you'd think on it a couple days later and you knew that person seemed more in you. So it pushed you harder. So, and it's not like a person, without any kids is just taking you along for a ride for fun. They see something in you.
Yeah.
They see whatever it is. They see something awesome. And so they want to influence it even more and get it out of you.
Cool.
So
I love stories like that, man. And so he was kind of like this. Was he? You had your dad that was like a hunting mentor, right?
Yep.
And then you had this Malone guy who was like an extra. So you had like a couple extra mentors.
Oh yeah. Yep. And then I had my dad's best friend, and still to this day, Dan Deagle, and he actually served on the Fish and Wildlife Board. And what the Fish and Wildlife does is they basically, the new building in Boise for the department, they funded it, and then the department will come back and pay it back, but they put the money up forth. And so they do that with a lot of projects.
Gotcha.
And it's the Idaho Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and it's super awesome. And it's not really like a major political group by any means, but they fund big projects like overpasses for mule deer, or a new department building, or something to that extent, something that they will put the money up and then the department can slowly pay it back because of how legislation and everything. Yeah, that's a big giant mess, but
yeah.
It's a really good program.
So you were like getting back to kind of learning, hunting wise, are you mainly a bow hunter?
I am pretty much like 95% a bow hunter.
You do a little rifle hunting here and there?
Yeah, a little bit here and there. I did harvest an antelope in Montana this year.
You did that rifle?
Yeah, that was rifle hunt. It was a good time.
How did you do that? Did you in Montana? Were you like setting a blind over water, or? No,
it was all 100% just spot and stock and in that sort of deal.
Okay, we might have to talk off air a little bit about that, because I've got some good points building up in Montana, man, and it's a lot closer than southern Idaho to me.
Yeah, well, Montana is fun. The tag that I drew, we did have the option to go bow hunt. It's a split season type tag. I can't remember the dates. It's like September 10th to October 9th, I think it was archery, and then from the 10th of October to like the 10th of November was rifle.
Gotcha.
And we had so much going on this year that we just went rifle hunting, and I'd never shot an antelope with a rifle, so that's what happened.
What kind of rifle were you using on an antelope?
I just shoot my 243.
That'd be perfect for a speed goat, man.
It was awesome. It was a quick one shot, clean done kill. I mean, it was perfect. My hunt lasted about 5 minutes.
That's always a good thing and a bad thing all at once. So many times I've regretted, and I'm not one of those dudes that, passes on certain animals, but there have been a few times where I did pass because I didn't want the season to be over. It's like the first day. And but usually I am if it's in front of me and it's legal and I got a tag for it, that sucker's going down, man. But it is a bummer when you tag out early.
This was pretty much just like a weekend type trip. So between the 5 of us this year, the same 5 people that I always constantly hunt with, other than my sister. She got her first anything this year, which was awesome. And I was literally like right next to her, and Dad got to watch the whole deal unfold. And that was really cool. But, between the five people that I mainly hunt with, we did harvest 18 big game animals this year in several states, and we had a good time. And
that's badass.
That's just what we do. Like we go hunt.
So I want to go back to this crazy elk story you were talking about with Malone, Mr. Malone.
So we got this. It's Tim's spot, and so it's like one of them. I am 100% forbidden to go there, take anybody there, and it's always been his spot. But
you'll share a waypoint with me though.
Nope, I can't even do that with you. Like, I'm just going to have to tell you, you're going to have to go pound sand on that one.
I ask everybody. It's always worth an ask.
Well, if it is, it might come up next to your mom's house. Just saying. But anyways, we call this spot the hole. And the reason we call it the hole is it's short for hellhole. I mean, it is a 7-mile hike in. And cool. It's big, giant, badass, 100% sagebrush country. And there's 3 tree patches that are about, the big one's probably, I don't know, quarter mile long. But the other 2 are only the size of a house. They ain't very big. Anyways, I called him and I'm like, hey, how you doing? Or whatever, and he said, hey, I shot a big 6-point, and I was going to see if you wanted to go, and, you could, help me run the horses, because he has horses, and to get the horses in there, it's not so bad. It's getting the horses back out when they're loaded. You got to have a second person to really zigzag them back and forth, because it's so steep that you can't ride them.
Yeah.
You'll kill yourself, or you'll kill your horse.
Yeah.
And so he told me, he's like, well, you know where to go. Just why don't you go up ahead of me, and I'll just take the horses in. That ain't no big deal, and we'll just work slowly and give you an hour and a half to hunt. And then we'll get my elk and we'll get that sucker out of there. I said, okay, not a problem. And I got there first thing that morning, and I'm like, where the crap is my rangefinder at? I couldn't find it. He's like, well, here's mine. So we got to the first ridge, and the first ridge that's just the starting point. It takes 45 minutes from the truck just to get to the top of the first ridge.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to drop all the way back down, and then go all the way back up into another ridge, and then all the way back down, and then finally you're in the hole. And I get almost to the top of the first ridge, and there's a bull, and he comes walking over in the little saddle that we always cross. Didn't get a shot. Well, I screwed up, and his camo rangefinder, I just left it sitting there, and I'm like going, oh, good night, like looking around.
Yeah, this is a bow hunt, right?
Yeah, it's 100% archery hunt.
Okay.
And
September?
Finally found the rangefinder, and then I took off and went into the hole. I got up over in the top, and there is elk just everywhere. There's like groups up to the north, there's groups south, east, west. There's like 20 different bulls bugling, and it is the most dream situation a person could ever live in.
Bitchin',
man. But it's 100% sagebrush, like I said. So you have to have a very methodical plan in your head of what you are actually going to do to be successful. And one of the greatest pieces of advice that I have ever gotten was what Tim had told me. Any animal that you pursue, you think of it as a sniper. If that sniper sees, hears, smells you, anything, you're dead. The game is over.
Oh, I like that, man. That's
And
cool.
so
I've never thought of it that way.
I've always thought of it that way. I've always been like, ooh, that makes a lot of sense. So they'll make your noodle click, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I got up on top of this ridge, and I see this elk, and so I take off after it, and it's a decent 6-point, and so I scoot down on my butt like 100 yards, and then I kept noticing this bull, and he would come out on this point, and he'd bugle, and then he'd walk away and go back and check his cows, and then he'd come back out to this point. Well, every time that bull went away, I would literally 100-yard dash it down the hill, making all sorts of ruckus and noise, and it was really an abrasive move.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the only move I had. And I got in the tree patch, and I kept trying. That bull would come out, and I'd hyper cow call, and I'd talk to him, and I'd try bugling, and I'd try doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
What do you mean hyper cow call? What is that? Just like an excited cow kind of thing?
It's a hyper cow is a cow in estrus, and it's a lot higher pitched, a lot longer pitched. It's not just a mew. It's a note that lasts like 5 to 7 seconds.
So what do you? Because that's an interesting take. Because if you've listened to this show at all, we've had a lot of discussion about different vocalizations that cows and bulls and all this stuff takes. There's a lot of people that have this general consensus that cow elk don't do an estrus call. And it's always like this contentious thing, oh no they do, oh no they don't. What's your take on that?
They 100% do.
So you've heard them do that?
Yes, I have, and it's a really high pitched, whiny sound, and it lasts like 5 seconds instead of just going mew like a regular elk is just mewing.
It's one of those like meow kind of thing.
And there's two. I think in elk language it can mean more than one thing. I think it could also mean like leave me alone, like little raghorn bull chasing a cow around. Like,
I've also heard them do it like if they can't find their calf, they'll do this long drawn out like 5-second crazy sounding mew thing.
Yep.
They're in distress one way or the other, right?
Like yeah. And so it's all in how you kind of do it. If you start out high and then you go low, that's like more of an estrus type sound. If you go low then high, that's more of a demanding, where are you, my child? Get your ass over here now type of thing.
Gotcha.
Looking for, their calf or whatever.
I hate it when I'm recording something like this and I can't find my elk calls, because I'd like to kind of talk about that one for a minute, but I don't know where I put my mouth calls, man. My diaphragms are, I think they're way over there, and I'd have to take my headphones off, so forget it.
But yeah, anyways, I get in this tree patch, and it's a steep sucker. I mean, it's like 60, 70 yards up to this bully where he's at. And this goes on for like 40 minutes. And I haven't seen Tim yet, He has 2 horses and a yellow lab, because the yellow lab just wants to go for a hike. I mean, all we're doing is just retrieving an elk. I'm hunting. So, I mean, we're in 100% legal status here. And I see the bull come out again, and I hyper cow called him. I'm trying to get him to break and come down. And he'd stop, and he'd look down those trees like, I don't see you. Well, that last time I decided to make a really aggressive move. And I made it about 40 yards up the hill, and that bull came out. But because of the angle and everything, I didn't shoot. He was only 20 yards.
Yeah.
Well, that bull, I didn't cow call that time, and so it was a lot shorter period that he was out on that point. And that bull turns around. Well, about that time, I hear this bugle behind me, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like Tim bugle. And I look over, and here's Tim and a bright brown and white horse and another bright, solid white horse and a yellow lab just running in circles like going off. And these elk can like full-fledged see, Tim and the horses and the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That bull came back to his bugle and did not care. And I shot that bull at 18 yards.
So was Malone, was he bugling from the horse? Was he actually saddled up?
Nope, he was just holding the reins and
he starts cranking on a bugle, huh?
Yep, just started cranking on a bugle. And it was like the wildest thing because I shot this bull at 18 yards and the bull took off like an absolute rocket, like you had just lit dynamite under somebody's ass.
Sweet.
And he hits the only tree on the whole entire hillside that's actually bigger than about 8 inches in diameter,
mm-hmm.
and broke his second point on the right side. And Tim, with his bare eyes, could actually see blood pumping and spraying all over the sagebrush.
Whoa.
It was the most wildest thing I have ever seen in my entire life.
That's crazy,
and it's still to this day my biggest bull that I've ever actually had the chance to shoot.
Do you guys usually go in on horseback, or is that just to retrieve an elk?
No, we only use the horses to actually retrieve an animal out of there because it's so far and there's too many ups versus downs.
I'm always curious about that, man, because I used to hunt horseback with a dude that, and actually I'm working on trying to get him on the show because I think he'd be a cool dude for people to hear from because he's an older guy that's just got a lot of experience and he's hunted a lot on horseback. But anyway, what he used to talk about, and I'd like to get your take on this, but what he used to talk about is when you go elk hunting and you're on horseback, the elk don't recognize you on the back of the horse. They only recognize the horse, which is a prey animal like them, so they're not all that disturbed. And so if anybody listening to this has any kind of like take on this or input they can offer, this is something I've always wondered about. But he says that he used to be able to essentially ride up to a herd of elk on his horse with a bow, and he'd get shot opportunities doing that because the elk weren't necessarily all that spooked by the horse. I don't question him. He's a guy that he's not one of those guys that just kind of BS's everybody, and because when he initially told me that, I questioned that, like that's Comanche shit right there.
Yeah,
and you know what I mean? And so I'm curious. So I want to hear your take, and I also want to let like the audience know if you guys have an opinion on that or experience with riding a horse up to a game animal, whether it's deer or elk or whatever, and how the animals, the wildlife reacts to that. I'd like to hear it. Shoot me an email, jim@thewesternhuntsman.com, and I'd love to hear, because that's something I've been thinking about in my mind for a long time, because I don't have horses anymore. I used to, and I used to hunt a lot on horseback, and I never tried it personally. We'd usually dismount and I'd hobble the horse or whatever to kind of finish off the hunt. But anyway, it's just an interesting thing. What's your take? Have you ever done that?
I've taken the horses with Tim before, and like gone for a ride and that kind of thing, and like during summertime. I think I've seen some elk and stuff from the horses, and they're just kind of like whatever for a minute.
I did ride up to a cow moose one time on horseback, and they almost touched noses. They were super curious about each other, but they were kind of standoffish kind of thing, And so I've just always been curious about that because I got rid of horses because they are a pain in my ass, and I mean they colic, they cost a fortune. They require constant attention, and I loved my horse. I had this horse. His name was Bad Whiskey, and Bad Whiskey and I were prolific jackrabbit hunters and coyote hunters and all this stuff. I literally would shoot off his back at coyotes and stuff. It was a good time. But man, they cost me a fortune. I'm just not rich enough for horses or something. So I'm always curious about that stuff.
Yeah, horses are expensive, and it's like I've got several friends that, if I have been known to do some pretty dumb things bow hunting. They're only a phone call away, and now, thanks to my amazing girlfriend, a text message away, because she bought me a Garmin InReach this year for Christmas, which was like the best thing ever for me.
Dude, now during hunting season, you and I we could like bounce ideas off each other's, with our satellite phones. Hey, what's up? What should I do?
Yeah,
I love that.
I know, right? But I don't know if that's 100% true thing. Honestly, I think some of that's kind of a wives' tale, because I mean,
it's hard to believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's hard to believe.
I'm kind of 50-50 on that one right now, Jim.
I am too. I can't see it. I just don't see it. However, the dude that I'm talking about that talked about this is one of those guys that he doesn't really BS anybody. And you also, like, I've been in the field with him enough to know, like, he can track a deer or an elk or whatever. But in this particular case that I have experience with this guy, man, he is one hell of a tracker. I learned so much hunting from him by tracking a deer that I'd hit, and he led me right to him. And it was amazing. I learned how to track from this guy, and this is 15 years ago or something. But anyway, I'm gonna get him on the show, because I think a lot of people learn from him. But I'm just always curious about that horse thing and what he talked about with that. And so. The question I have for you, kind of rolling along through this, why bow hunting? What?
Why?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
It's kind of weird, because like when at the time when I shot that bull with Tim, I was 17, I think, and that wasn't actually my first bull ever. It was probably my third or fourth. And it was probably my, 10th big game animal, somewhere in there at the time. But it's always been the actually beating the animal's senses. Any jackass can go and shoot a rifle that, it's not hard. 200-300 yards, it's really not hard. Sure. America was born and raised on guns. And we took bows from Indians. That's pretty much how it was. But in the reality of things, it's being close to the animals. It's beating all their senses, even that magical sixth sense that you don't even know what it really honestly is. It just sometimes things just don't work out, and you thought it was 100% in the bag deal type of thing.
Man, there is something to that, man. There is something to that sixth sense.
And so it's always been bow hunting is my thing, and I like to be close to the animals. And once you actually learn to bow hunt and you become actually pretty successful at it, the part I like about it too is I can go and I can give back. That's the thing. I know how to teach people. Shot, for Martin Archery. I staffed for Martin Archery from when I was about 15 to about 22 years old. So I shot a lot of big time tournaments, and I got to do a little bit of traveling, and it was a lot of fun. But the part that for me now, why bow hunting, it's learning to give back. And so I do help out at Advantage Archery, which Caleb Drake is the owner of that, and he is super awesome. He is the most down-to-earth person you could ever meet.
Where's that shop at?
That shop is in Twin Falls, Idaho, and is actually the third largest shop in the West.
Oh, nice. No kidding. I
so
cool.
It's a phenomenal world to be in that shop. The atmosphere it's different, and I'm not saying that because I get paid to do it. I don't actually get paid to do anything. That atmosphere is different, and the team that is there will always be willing to help. And there's some fantastic shooters in there. Francisco Cantu is one of them people, and I actually butt heads with him quite often about little different things or shooting or whatever. And I get along with him.
There's
Can he
something
kick
to
my
be
ass
said
right now? Yeah.
There's something to be said for, and this applies to, whether it's hunting or politics or bottle cap collections. There's something to be said for people that know that they can disagree with each other and still be friends. And I think that I've talked about that a lot on the show, and it's one of those things I get so irritated about how people they could become bitter enemies over the smallest of disagreements. And that just, it rubs me the wrong way, because that's not how I was raised. Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving at my house when I was a kid, it was a freaking all out verbal assault on each other. All the adults were getting around there talking politics, and they'd argue and scream, but you know what they did? They were hugging as we left the door, as we were going home, and so that's cool. You can do that. It's always something that bothers me with folks, and I think social media has made that worse. That it's okay if we disagree a little bit. That does not mean we're enemies. You're not Al Qaeda because you don't see things my way. But getting back to what you were talking about with being a bow hunter, the one thing I wanted to touch on, and this is coming from a dude. I choose weapons based on what kind of season I want to get, right? So I'm pretty good with a bow. I'm pretty good with a rifle. I'm okay with a muzzleloader too. The only thing I've shot with that is a wild pig, and that was with a cool Civil War musket. And I'm pretty proud of that thing. The thing of 69 caliber round, mini ball smooth bore musket, man. Civil War musket. I even had the bayonet and everything. Anyway. Because I like rifle hunting for certain things. I like bow hunting for certain things. But the one thing that I will say about bow hunting is something that you kind of alluded to there, which was talking about this sixth sense that the animal has. Winter is a great time to get stocked up, geared up, and dialed in for this coming hunting season coming up in 2021. So I want to save you guys some money. And first off, let's start with Hoffman Boots. Hoffman Boots are the boot of choice at the Western Huntsman, and Hoffman Boots used to be like this little North Idaho secret with their hunting boots. But these boots are great boots. They won't cost you as much as some of the other top name brands out there, but they are every bit as good. And to save it even a little bit more money, I want you to type in the promo code Huntsman10 to save you 10% off at checkout. Now, I got to give you a fair warning real quick up front with Hoffman Boots. They're like 6 weeks out right now on orders because everybody is jumping on the Hoffman Boot train, and you should too. Next, I got SKRE Gear, Extreme Mountain Gear. This high-performance hunting attire and gear is specifically tested for camel patterns throughout the North American continent, and it's backed by a great company. Guys, SKRE has a great history. I tested this gear all last season, and I put that gear through the ringer, up and down, left and right, to and fro. Save you a little bit of money. Use promo code thewesternhuntsman at checkout to save you 15% off and free shipping. That's a hell of a deal. Check out SKRE Gear, SKREgear.com. It'll be in the show notes. Last and certainly not least, Phelps Game Calls, the choice, the selected call company of the Western Huntsman officially for 2021. Guys, there's some big things happening with Phelps Game Calls, and I can't say enough good things about this company. What a story. Started in just like this workshop, and now it's one of the premier hunting call companies out there on the market. And if you haven't tried Phelps Game Calls, you're really missing out. You really are missing out on those diaphragm elk reeds. They are amazing, and the amp frame is an absolute game changer. Check it out at Phelps.com and use promo code Huntsman10 at checkout to save you 10%. Let's get back into the conversation, guys. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you for supporting our sponsors. Here we go. Have you ever been in a situation where you are super close to the animal? I'm talking 20 yards or less. And I don't care if it's a deer, I don't care if it's an elk or a wild boar or antelope, whatever, pronghorn. I was correct when I say antelope, because I know there's dudes that cringe when I say that, because they are pronghorns. But anyways,
yeah, but they got lots of names for them.
They do. So I don't care what the animal is, but have you ever been in that situation where, you could feel how close that animal is? Some circumstances are you're sitting there bow hunting and there's a doe that walks up and you don't want a doe, you want to shoot a buck, or there's a buck or a bull elk and they're not offering a shot even though they're super close because it's, way brushy or they're behind a tree or whatever. But that feeling you get that you could feel their presence, right? And you could see by their body language and how alert they are, they feel your presence as well. They know you're not there. They don't smell you. They don't see you. They don't hear you. You're just sitting still, but they are on high alert. They know something's there. And that is what really gets my blood pumping when it comes to bow hunting is like, man, I've been so close. I could damn near reach out and spank their ass like I was a, whatever. But that feeling that you get, like you're connected to that animal. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
this buck I shot, and actually one of the bucks I shot this year, it happened. It was a rifle hunt. I was rifle hunting, but he happened to just come in super, super close. I'm talking 12 yards maybe. And he knew I was there, but he didn't. You know what I mean? He felt something was there. There was danger. There was somebody there. And I knew he was there only because I could see the tops of his tines coming through the brush. And I knew he was, obviously I could see him because I got him and put a tag on him, right? But it's something, there's something to that sixth sense that you were talking about, and I don't think that gets talked about enough. What can you expand on that? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I can say I've had that feeling, several times. Probably one of the greatest ones I can think of is I actually shot my largest black bear that I've ever actually shot at 8 yards. And
wait, did you say that was a black bear?
Yep.
At 8 yards?
Yep.
With a bow?
Yep.
Bitchin'.
And so I hunt with a non-resident guy, and him and I are not just like friends, we're like brothers. His name's Hazen Downward. Super top-notch dude. I met him on another hunting staff that I was actually part of, and became friends, and we did all sorts of other dumb crap together and became better friends. And now it's like if I don't talk to him, it's kind of weird because his wife is always like, your girlfriend's on the phone, like always making fun of us, but
that's awesome.
He lives in Salt Lake and I live here, and so a 15-minute conversation can go a long ways in a person's day. And I've always been a type of person that if I really care about you, I will talk to you every day. Other than, your basic, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your intermediate family.
Yeah, just one of those friendships. I know what I know what you mean, man.
And it's one of them. It's one of them friendships, and we constantly talk. We constantly bounce it, ideas off each other's heads. Do you think this is gonna work? We'll get messages. He's the only dude I can actually have a conversation with the emojis on your text messages where it's not words, it's just like symbols.
What we can have.
Yeah, we can have a full-fledged conversation in emojis. It's straight up. It's like the dumbest thing ever to actually admit that. But I'd never really been into bear hunting or bear baiting or any of that. And that was kind of one of his things. And I got invited, and, the first year I went, I shot a bear with my rifle, and it was cool. It was an enjoyment. And then, the following year I went and I got another bear, but I got my first one with my bow, and that was cool because he was actually sitting right next to me when that happened. Nice. Same with the first one. We were just checking baits, and it just happened to work out the way it did. Mm-hmm. But the third one, and that's my actual largest bear I've ever shot. It was a different thing. It was really tough, and there was lots of rain, and the bears were just not working, and like he'd been out hunting like 3 times, and I'd just been sitting in the trailer just drinking beer because my bait that I set had 0 bears, none.
Nice.
Well, if there ain't nothing going on in your bait, why do you got to leave camp? So I'd just hang out and,
drink,
drink and scratch tickets or talk to people.
Are you drinking tonight?
No, not really.
What kind of beer are you drinking?
I'm a Coors Light kind of guy, but.
Oh man, I knew we were going to be buddies, man. The Silver Bullet, dude.
Yeah, it is a Silver Bullet.
Hell with all those hipster beers. I like the Silver Bullet.
Well, I have to drink the Silver Bullet because my family grew Coors beer. So if you drink anything else, you're kind of like abolished in this family. That's the way it works.
That's awesome, man.
And so, anyways, I finally, we went and checked cameras, and there happened to be a bear on my bait. And I'm like, but the camera, all we could hear was just noises, and it was a nighttime video. But we never could see it because the bear was actually sniffing the camera. We went in the next day and we actually restocked the bait with Boar Masters and really got it.
What is Boar Masters, dude? Is that
so Boar Masters is a Idaho made product. It's made by Nick Hopkins, another top notch guy, and it is a bait attractant. There's multiple different scents.
So it's something. So you get some kind of bait, and then you like either spray it or pour this Boar Masters on top of it.
Yeah. So like your grains, your corns, your dog food, all that. There's a powder that you can put it on it, and it's 100 times sweeter than sugar. So it makes that bait. It makes that bait addictive, but it still. I don't care what you say about bear baiting or whatever. Bear baiting is one of the hardest things you can do.
Well, I think
to do it correctly, I should say that.
A lot of people, it's funny too. Like you get dudes that bitch about bear baiting that live in other states outside of Idaho that in the same breath that they're bitching about people that bait for bears are sitting out there with one of those corn feeders for whitetail. And it's just kind of a silly notion, Bears are extremely elusive. They're extremely cautious. So baiting is a great management tool to keep these bear numbers down. And it's for the hunter's sake, and it's also for the bear's sake, because these bears will outbreed the management efforts of hunters. So the state of Idaho determined, and some other states have done this too, that it is okay to bait these bears because then we're more successful at managing these bears, and it creates a healthier population. So the whole argument against bear baiting is just silly. I'm tired of hearing about it. Like, shut up, dude. You're out there baiting these freaking whitetail on your game ranch in whatever state you're in, and you're practically raising these deer that you have names for. And they're, exactly what time they get up and have their coffee and move on through your little meadow where you have all this baiting and food and feed and all this stuff that you've managed for, but yet bear baiting in the West is a problem. Like, come on, grow up. I get sick of that argument, dude.
It is. It's a hard argument, and so in Montana, it's 100% spot and stock.
Spot and stock in Montana, yeah.
Yeah, and people think that, you shot a bear over bait, you cheated. Well, in the reality of things, they've never done it. It's one of the hardest things you can ever do. Yeah. And in fact, you look at bait and you're just like, I don't even want to go up the mountain anymore. I'm tired of playing this game. It's stupid. Like, it makes you want to strap a time bomb to it and blow everything up. That's how mad you get at it.
Yeah, you got to haul the barrel up. I mean, it's a lot of work. This is coming from a dude that is defending bear baiting that has never actually bear baited in the past. I've always done spot and stock or calling or whatever, but this year I'm actually going to do some bear baiting because I've done a lot of homework on it. And it's not necessarily the most effective way to get a bear, but it is an effective way, but it is a lot of physical effort. Like, I'm going to have to haul an empty 55-gallon drum like 2 miles into this spot that I know where there's 4 or 5 bears hanging out. And I only know they're there because I've ran into them while I was elk hunting, and so they're there every year. And so it's just a lot of work, and then you got to refill the bait barrel and all this stuff. But I'm curious as to what you said with this Boar Masters, because I've just about pulled the trigger on a different bait called Batum 907, and it's got really good reviews and stuff. So I'm trying to get your opinion. What's the difference there?
I don't know. This is gonna be I can already hear old Schmitty going, Batum 907.
So I should get you both on, and you guys can both make a case to me. Batum 907 versus Boar Masters.
Well, the thing is I'm not gonna say either one of them suck. They're both great products, and I choose to stick with somebody local in Idaho.
I do like that.
I know the guy, and he's always done a well done job as customer service and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not to stir the pot here or nothing, but that's what we've always used and we've had luck with. And so why change?
Okay. So I agree with you in terms of especially the local factor. I really like that. So I've never even heard of that company. So that's why I'm asking. That leads me to another question when we're talking about Scott Schmid, who, by the way, if you guys don't know who we're talking about, Scott Schmid is the president of Idaho State Bowhunters, and he's been on the show. He's a good dude that has a lot of experience, and we're just when we give him a hard time, it's out of love, and that's all that is. So I just wanted to clarify that because we get people listening in somewhere like New Mexico. They're like, "Who the hell's old Schmitty?"
Right.
So that's who old Schmitty is, and so
the old president of ISB is Toady Tad.
Yeah, Toady Tad, man.
Toady Tad and old Schmitty.
Do you know Tad? Will you get on the phone with Tad and tell him to come on my damn show? I've been trying to get him on, and it was my fault. We had a time scheduled to get Tad on, and freaking I had something come up at work or whatever, and I couldn't make the time. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was last summer. But I really want to get Tad on it, man. That guy is the encyclopedia of bear hunting and pronghorn hunting too. And I'd love to talk to him, but every time I message him about it, he doesn't really respond. But he'll respond when we talk about other things. And so I'm just like, dude, come on the show, man. So if you're listening in the audience and you know Tad, reach out to him and let him know. The Western Huntsman's after him.
I actually talked to Tad right before we got on this deal, and
did you?
I had some other business and stuff to talk to, and he told me to tell you hi.
Well,
so that was a thing, and
he's a good dude, man. Him and his buddy Jeff cracked me up.
So a little history of Alex and Tad. Tad is the one that at the current time of Idaho State bow hunting and that kind of thing, he was the current president. And, he'd been looking for a regional director that would actually pursue stuff and knew what they were talking about and actually sit back and also listen. And it took him a good 4 or 5 weeks, and that's the honest truth, to convince me, because it's a volunteer thing,
Mm-hmm.
And I can honestly say, thanks, man. It's been a cool ride. It's been rather interesting, and I've met some very unique people, and and it's kind of cool because once you get involved, you can take the knowledge that you have and you can tell the public. And good time, good part of the time, I'm going to say the public's going to fight you and call you a liar, or you're getting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you put yourself out there in that situation.
Yeah, or you're getting given tags. I've had that. And, I've been bashed up and down the wall, and I really don't care. But the one cool thing is when the Department of Fish and Game actually knows that you're working with them,
mm-hmm.
they actually invite you to go do a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when you create that friendship, and it's on your part. It's not on their part. It's on your part. And you have to, there is, you gotta be smart and you can't use their names and stuff because it's risk of a job.
Yeah.
But you learn so much in the science and everything that goes into our wildlife here in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
It is baffling.
It's dude, there's so many layers to it. There's so many different stakeholders, so to speak. There's so many different levels of people that get so upset, may not understand why that decisions have to be made. It's such a complicated thing, and I just like guys like you and like Tad, Tad's such a leader. He's just one of those guys that you look at and you're like, man, I need to. He sets an example, and what people don't. I'm glad you got involved with the Idaho State Bowhunters. I'm glad whoever talked you into it to do it. I'm glad that happened because it changes your perception about things and how wildlife is managed and how seasons and rules are determined, and the complication and the layers and the different voices and perspectives that you have to deal with. When I was in the Marines, I had this first sergeant Andershak. And man, he was one of those guys that, like, you couldn't even make a movie about this guy because he was such a badass, right? And he was one of those guys that you didn't want to disappoint, right? He was that kind of leader. It's not like he demanded respect; he commanded respect. And you didn't want to let him down. And I remember one time I did something because I was super mouthy in the Marines, and I let him down, and he was pissed at me. And First Sergeant Andershak, you did not want him to be mad at you. And he was so pissed at me. And I was upset about it. And I remember he told me, he brought me into his office. And when you go into the First Sergeant's office, that's a problem. Like, you screwed up, using good language. And I go in there and he's like, listen, Huntsman, I deal with 300 different attitudes every single freaking day. And so what he meant by that is he's dealing with 300 different attitudes from everybody within the company. He's a company first sergeant. And when you take that statement apart and understand that the attitudes that are different perspectives with different personalities and how people approach things are so much different amongst 300 people, imagine like the Idaho Fish and Game with thousands of different attitudes and personalities and perspectives and different approaches to how they come at something. And I kind of got off topic there. I apologize about that, but it reminded me of that. And I think that a lot of people they don't understand what the magnitude of that looks like when you're dealing with something like the Fish and Game. And I don't care if it's Idaho Fish and Game or Arizona or Wyoming or Colorado. I know can get super contentious too. And so anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, dude. I just started going on a rant, and that's where we ended up.
Rants happen. I get there. I get it.
Yeah.
It
happens.
The thing that I have to add to that, though, is it is hard. It's 100% the most difficult thing in the world some days, being a volunteer.
That's what it was. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's what it was. I was getting at being like a volunteer for one of these organizations like Idaho State Bowhunters. Yeah.
It's hard. Oh, by the way, IASB is actually a 503c now, tax deductible. So if you want to make your donations.
Yeah, you Idahoans
I'm waving
out
my
there,
hand at you right now.
Donate.
Donate.
Any of you Idahoans that are Idaho State resident bow hunters, you need to be members of the Idaho State Bowhunters Association. I mean, they've got your best interest at heart, and for sure, I'd be proud to plug them all day long.
It's hard though, because a lot of the general public actually thinks that you're paid to do this position, or you're paid to say this, or you're paid to say that. And really, in the reality of things, no, I love bow hunting. Yeah. And I love the animals, and I love our state. So if you want
I'd
to
like
argue,
to just stop you right now and just I'd like everybody to thank my wife. She just brought me a fresh drink. Thanks, babe. You're awesome. And you're
good
hot.
job, Mrs. Huntsman.
Yeah,
good job, Mrs. Huntsman.
Okay.
Trophy wife.
And you're exactly right, dude. I think a lot of people they look at that like you're not getting rich, but you're getting some kind of throwback or kickback or some kind of perk for being on a board of like that of Idaho State Bowhunters. And I'm on the board of Idaho Wildlife Federation, and I've been on lots of boards in the past, and everybody thinks there's some kind of big advantage, but it's not. It's just basically this big thing where, you're just donating time.
You're following your passion in your heart.
Exactly.
What it actually tells you.
Exactly.
And that's the hard part, because there's lots of groups on Facebook about hunting in Idaho and stuff, and I'm not going to name any of them, but if you're going to join one about archery hunting in Idaho, go to Idaho Archery Hunters on Facebook. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great group, and there's a lot of people there that are actually willing to help. It is more neutral and less arguments and bullshit.
Yeah, it is. Idaho. It's actually a really good group for when we're talking on the standards of Facebook. It's a good one. I started one back in 2014 called North Idaho Archery Hunters, and that one is really good because there's, like what you were just saying, there's not like a bunch of contention and arguing back and forth, and that's rare for a hunting group on Facebook.
It is, and that's the hardest part. No matter what we do as a group, or even Idaho Fish and Game, you're not going to please 100% of the people.
Yeah, it's so difficult.
The goal is to please 52%. Honestly, that's straight up.
I feel like you're kind of stretching it, man, trying to get 52% of agreement.
Like,
wow.
That's what the majority of the people wanted, so that's what happens, and that's the way our department works. So just because something doesn't go your way or what you think should have went your way doesn't mean that they didn't listen. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that I've ever actually learned from Tad. He always told me, just shut up and listen. And I didn't know what that meant at the time.
That's such a great point. That's such a great point. And that goes back to what I was talking about, where Tad, he is a leader, man, and he has that kind of insight. He's been doing this for a long time. And I sometimes where I get concerned is like a lot of the younger guys and gals that are kind of getting into hunting and they're just kicking off their hunting career. They're not listening to folks like Tad and Scott Schmid and Alex Wagner and all these people that we're talking about, and guys outside of Idaho. I apologize for this particular discussion is very Idaho specific, but you have the same kind of people in your state where you've got these guys and gals. They've been doing this for a long time. They've got a lot of experience. They've got a lot of really good perspective and insight. And I feel like sometimes some of the younger folks that they're just getting into it, and whether it's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, they're not listening to the folks that have decades of experience in this, and it's dynamite stuff. This is dynamite experience, and I'd like to throw it out there again. If you're friends with Tad on Facebook or Instagram or something, I don't know if he's on Instagram or not, but shoot him a private message and let him know he needs to come on the Western Huntsman.
Yeah, Tad's a good dude. Like he is. He's a good dude.
He is.
And actually, I was the person that actually picked Scott to be
Yep. You
picked
Scott to be president?
Yep.
What in the world were you thinking? No, I'm kidding. No, the ISB is lucky to have Scott. All right, I'm totally kidding. I like to ruffle his feathers, man. Him and I, we have some really good conversations off of recording a podcast.
And Scott he's been a great person to work with and learn with, and
yeah.
And the thing is it's not just Scott and Alex as a team. There's Stephanie Dops, there's Jake, there's all sorts of people behind the scenes, and
I feel like Idaho
State they're all important.
Yeah,
they're all important.
Like what you're saying, and I feel like Idaho State Bowhunters just has their shit together, man. It's a great organization.
We try to have our shit together. I'm not going to say we have our shit together every day, but
I know I'm well aware there's hunters out there that are listening to this, and they heard that and they're like, well, I disagree with Idaho State Bowhunters on this particular issue. Well, you got to really take a step back and look at it from a bird's eye view. All in all, ISB is really a good organization that has your best interest at heart. Whether there might be a couple things that you disagree with, but that's going to be the case with any. I don't care if it's Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I don't care if it's Foundation for Wildlife Management. I don't care if it's for the Mule Deer Foundation. There's always going to be certain things that folks are going to disagree with here and there. That does not take away from their level of influence and positive things that they do.
And that's a 100% correct statement. You know, like I got to hand it off to Stephanie. I mean, she's our Region 3 director, and she's also our webmaster at the same time. It's all 100% once again. So she goes to work, deals with her kids, and then, does this shit all day long.
Yeah.
Why? Because she loves archery.
Yep.
That's why. That's the basic bottom reason. And is there arguments between board, there's arguments and, board members and, frustrations but in the end game, that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all in the same thing for the same reason. And it's to see this state succeed in archery hunting and to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
for
we
sure.
all love hunting, and it's been a great time. And, you meet lots of friends along the way, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, that's how I kind of stumbled upon meeting Jim Huntsman.
Yeah, I mean, we've never actually met in person, man, but we've been friends on social media for a while, and we've talked here and there, and it just kind of, this is, and I've said this a million times on the show, but one of my favorite things, actually, it is my most favorite thing about doing this podcast is a combination of I learn a lot about hunting, and I also make new friends every time I have a guest or I interact with people in the audience, or whatever the case is. I have this big network of friends, and these are genuine friends because we're hunters, right? This isn't some other thing. This is hunting, and when we're hunters, there's like this brother and sisterhood that happens. We have the same passion, and it's unique. If you look at the percentage of the population of the United States that actually hunts, it's rather small, which is alarming on one hand, and on the other hand, when we meet another hunter, we have like this kindred spirit that I take that into my day job. And what I do for a day job to make money, and because I think like a lot of people think that being a director of ISB makes a bunch of money doing that kind of thing. No, you don't. I think a lot of people also think that me having this podcast, I make a bunch of money. No, trust me, this thing costs me more money than I could shake a stick at, and that's because I enjoy doing it, though. I really enjoy doing it, and I have sponsors that even with what they sponsor the show with, this show is still a kind of a cash. What do you call that? We're hemorrhaging cash, to say the least. And I'm okay with that, but I make friends like you.
It's like I said, it comes back down to where your heart lies. And if your heart lies in the outdoors, who cares if you blow $100?
Yeah, I don't.
In the reality of things,
I'm at a point where in my life and my career and my family and stuff, I don't mind spending money to do this. At some point, if it actually profits, it would go a long way towards me convincing my wife that it's worth doing. Right? Yeah, but at this point, it doesn't, because it does. This thing soaks up so much time, and I love it though. I love it. I'll be at work. I'll be in some big ass meeting at work, and we're all, around this big table talking about, strategic planning for the company and blah, 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 all this stuff that we do that I've always tuned out anyway, because I'm thinking about hunting. And, but I'll be thinking about, oh man, my boss just said that. That'd be a great idea to help the podcast. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
right.
I think
Like
about that kind
out
of
of the
stuff.
blue, you're like,
I think about it all the time, and I love it because I make friends with you, and I get to have, I have these great conversations with folks like you and everybody else that I have on the show, and we just always become connected and friends. And that's what hunting is, man. Hunting is connecting with nature and connecting with people and being, putting something like you being the one of the volunteer directors of the Idaho State Bow Hunting Association. I always say that wrong, dude. Idaho State Bowhunters. You being a director and volunteering your time, that is putting something larger than yourself ahead of you. It's kind of like, I always look at it like I get asked a lot, especially in my day job, like what do young folks need to do? And I tell them, you need to put something bigger than you as a priority for a moment. This can be related and magnified on a level like you join the military, right? You put your country ahead of you for several years. Or let's say you're a super religious individual and you go on like a church mission or something. You put something bigger than you ahead of yourself. And that selfless act right there, that is the kind of stuff. Now, I am not saying that being a volunteer at a hunting association is bigger than any of that by any means. What I'm saying, it's a smaller version of that, and it's honorable. Putting something like becoming a volunteer at the Idaho State Bowhunters, that is something that's a big deal. You're donating your time, your knowledge, your money, all these things that you could be doing otherwise, and creating time for something that you're passionate about, like hunting. For me, you just have my respect, and so I appreciate that. But that leads me to a question for you, Alex. What do you think has changed the most with hunting in terms of like when you started, you're 12 years old, and now you're 31 and kind of rolling through your life as a hunter? How has things changed?
I would have to honestly say, there's definitely been some major movement of people, for sure.
By movement, do you mean like people moving to Idaho?
Yeah, I mean, like this year alone, Idaho's gained over 80,000 people in 1 year. Mm-hmm. That's a huge thing.
That is not specific to Idaho. That's the same case for Montana, Wyoming. I don't think Wyoming grows as much as Idaho because people are afraid of the winters there. But Colorado is growing like crazy. New Mexico, Arizona. But I agree, man. We've had a huge influx in population.
People have changed. I would say herd numbers have changed. I mean, we've had some pretty drastic crap happen over the last few years. Mm-hmm. I mean, like in this state alone right now, we're missing deer from 2016, 18, and 19 winters. We're missing three age classes.
I know.
So
man. Hey, with you. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, man. I cut you off.
I would have to say if you're the general public, you might want to brace yourself because there's going to be some stuff probably happening. I mean, I do.
In terms of herd numbers, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
As far as mule deer numbers, elk are awesome. They're the toughest thing alive, and that's why that's my favorite on the go type of thing. If I'm going to go hunting, I'm going to go chase elk.
It's interesting hearing sometimes like perspectives from you guys down in southern Idaho versus northern Idaho. How like some of those numbers get affected. Like our whitetail deer numbers and our mule deer numbers are like kind of steady, right? Mm-hmm. Whitetail are growing, elk are down. And elk are down because, you could blame it on and moose, man, are way down. And I don't have any scientific evidence to back that up. It's all literally field experience and the amount of moose I've seen, when you look at it over a track record of a decade, the moose are down. I don't care what IDFG says. I don't care what some biologist says. I don't care what anybody says. There are less moose in North Idaho than there were 10 years ago.
You know why, right?
We've got wolves, and I know they like to talk about how it's this tick problem, and again, I'm not picking on Idaho Fish and Game because I've said it on the show many times. I feel like Idaho Fish and Game has the best interest of the wildlife at heart, and they do what they can with the information that they have. Sometimes I question whether or not they have the right information. And that's all it is. Like for me personally, I geek out on behavioral and wildlife numbers and all this stuff. It's not my career, but I do geek out on it. And I can tell you, just from a guy that spends a lot of time in the woods, our elk numbers in North Idaho and our moose numbers in North Idaho, they are down, and wolf numbers are up. And I don't know how you want to interpret that, but I am telling you that I interpret that as we have a predation problem, and you can blame it on mountain lions, you can blame it on ticks. For me, seeing it from my perspective as a guy that spends several weeks in the field a year hunting and just being an outdoorsman in general, those numbers are down. And that's all I know. I don't know how to analyze that from there.
The other thing, though, that you actually don't realize, yes, we have a wolf problem, and definitely certain select units there is a major wolf problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about ticks. That's actually a true thing. Mm-hmm. But the number one cause is poaching.
We do have a poaching number. Was that down there where they had that mountain goat was poached just recently, but it wasn't killed?
That's actually in between us. That was in Region 2, I believe.
Region 2? No, it's not Region 2.
It'd be Hell's Canyon. So it'd either be 3 or 2.
Now 3 is mine. I live in Region 3, and I'm an hour and a half from Canada. So I think that
Region
was
3
central.
is Boise. Region 3 is Boise.
No, it's
Region
not.
1.
Are you talking about hunting units?
Nope. Region 3.
Oh, regions. So there's some kind of different breakdown you got going.
So, yeah.
I always look at it in units. Like hunting. So I'm in hunting unit 3.
Yep. Okay. So unit 3 is one thing. Regions. So what I'm talking about when it comes to regions is how Idaho Fish and Game breaks down our state. I'm in Region 4. Region 4 would be like Mountain Home to Burley to like Sun Valley, for example. Hell's Canyon is probably Region 2.
And that's
Region
where that
3.
mountain goat was poached?
Yep, with the whole crossbow bolt thing and everything. Yep. And poaching is, unfortunately, a really big portion of why we actually lose animals. Mm-hmm. Because it never stops. It never stops. Figure 5% of people actually get caught poaching.
Yeah.
So if you care about the wildlife and you see something crazy, turn their asses in. Like, there's no shame in being a rat. Like, if that's what you think is, a bad thing, turn them in.
I knew
That's
this
our
dude.
Wildlife. We're all paying for it.
I had this dude that I knew years ago, and he worked in this, they did this weird, what did they call that? Gosh, I'm going to totally draw a blank on that. Anyway, okay, so you got a hospital that requires oxygen. They provided the oxygen tanks, right? That's the kind of business he was in. And he was talking about, him and I were sitting around a campfire one time, And he's like, I was at work the other day, and this guy was telling me that he shot this 5-point bull elk. And the problem with what he was talking about is the unit that he shot this bull elk in with a rifle. It was a rifle hunt. Is spike only. And I asked him, did you have one of those special draw tags or whatever? And he said, no. I had just a regular spike tag, but this 5-point bull elk was there, and I took that bull elk. And so this guy that I know, and I don't want to say his name, but he basically said, okay, you showed me the picture of the bull elk you shot. It was a 5-point in a spike-only unit. You've talked about it. You've been bragging about it around the office here. I've got one or two options for you. Either you're going to call Fish and Game and let them know what you did. And this is, by the way, this is not in Idaho. This is in Utah. He says, I've got one or two options for you. Either you're going to call Fish and Game and let them know what you did, or I'm going to call them. And you have 30 seconds to make that decision, because I'm going to make that phone call in 30 seconds. So what's your decision? And I feel like at some point with hunting and hunters and our hunting community, all of us has to have a little bit of that mindset to an extent, as to which I know there's the old saying where snitches get stitches, right?
Right.
I get that. But at the same time, what happens when the Fish and Game is trying to manage a particular unit in a particular state for whatever goal that is managed, that unit is managed for? What happens when people throw that off balance by poaching? And that is poaching. When you have a spike-only tag and you shoot a 5-point bull elk, that is poaching. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for people that may disagree with that. That's illegal, and it's not the appropriate thing to do. And so this particular guy that I'm talking about, he ended up having to make that call because the guy didn't believe him. He didn't believe that he would call and snitch him out for this. And in some cases, we just have to accept the fact that in order to protect the future of hunting, let me say that again, in order to protect the future of hunting, sometimes we have to be a snitch. And I know that that's hard for a lot of people, and a lot of people look at that like, oh man, but these are my peeps. Oh man, I don't want to get that guy in trouble. He's got this, and he's got kids, and he's got, this and that, and financially, it's going to be a disaster. But you guys, if you are passionate about hunting and you want to see a future in hunting, we have to follow the rules. And that's what happened in that situation. And I wish more people actually kind of had that attitude. And I hate to say that because, for a guy like me who is, I'm not a fan of rules in the government and things like that. Right. And so, but I also understand that as a management process, as hunters and outdoorsmen and fish and game and wildlife management, we do have to have a process and rules and these parameters put in place in order to protect our wildlife and the future of hunting. Because if that stuff gets, if it's shaken up by people that don't follow the rules, it's going to ruin it for everybody. It's going to ruin it for everybody. Like you've been there. Everybody's been there in like a national forest where the Forest Service has warned and warned and warned that if you keep trashing this particular area, we're going to close it down. And what happens? They close it down, right? That happens every time. I've got a particular area up in my neck of the woods where people go up and shoot, and they leave targets, and they leave shell casings, and they leave all this trash and garbage, and the Forest Service keeps threatening they're going to shut it down. Well, they did. They shut it down because people can't clean up after themselves. Same thing with hunting. If you break the rules and you poach and you do things that are outside of the rules and the regulations, and you don't follow what the Fish and Game and the game wardens are out there trying to enforce, we're going to lose it. We're going to lose it. I don't know how else to put it.
It's not any different than people riding in a closed trail. They get a ticket and then they go, well, this is an open trail. Well, no, it wasn't.
Yes,
you didn't follow the rules. Hello, McFly, here's your ticket. Have it.
Hey, dude, you're 31. I didn't know that you would even know that reference, that Hello, McFly. Come on.
Oh, dude, I know all sorts of things. I grew up in a. I honestly, like I said, I grew up with a way different background than most people ever dream of, and I can look back and say I'm thankful for it. Like I got my dad's buddies, you know, like Dan Deagle and Michael Priest and
Mr. Malone.
You know, and then I got Tim Malone, you know, I got those guys, and then like I have my best friend Hazen, and then there's old Smitty over here in the corner, you know, being grumpy.
Smitty, he is grumpy, dude. He could be grumpy. Have you seen him on Facebook?
Oh yeah, some days. Well, that's what happens when you used to be a UFC cage fighter,
right? I mean, that's what I told. Somebody was mouthing off to him, and I wanted to chime in and be like, "Hey, dude,
bad idea."
Is a UFC fighter. He's gonna beat your ass like cornbread batter if you don't knock it off.
Like, I'm sure I'll probably after this podcast comes out, I'll probably be getting a phone call going, "Alex, you SOB," and I'll be like, "Well, I'm in Twin Falls. Good luck finding me."
Challenge him to a
see you at the
UFC
winter meeting,
fight,
buddy.
At the Jamboree, man, we're gonna have like a ring where people can take on Scott Schmitty at the ISB Jamboree next year.
Is that like the new version of, you know, like the person on top of the little diving board and you have to hit the, you know, little dong thing on the side of the pool?
Yep.
Yeah, the Dunkum deal.
If you can connect with Schmitty with a closed fist, then you win.
Is that what it is?
I think so. We're gonna make the rule right now, man.
If that's the case, then I'm gonna need about a 10-foot long 2x4 because that's about as close as I want him getting to me.
Now he's getting old. He's getting slow. Listen, Schmitty, if you're listening to this, I'm coming down.
Yeah, but
there.
if you listen to the old saying, "Let sleeping dog lie," there's a reason why. There's a reason for that saying.
Dude, I wouldn't mess with him. I'm a Marine, and I wouldn't mess with him. I'm just saying.
But
no,
I have a lot of wonderful people in the background that are always you know cheering me on. Even my grandpa, that he wasn't really actually like a true grandpa. He was my step grandpa. He was John Bastida. He's the one at the Bass Center in Boise. He was actually a politician.
Oh, really?
And so I have backgrounds in a lot of different areas, and I don't know. My eyes are wide open, honestly.
So with that kind of background, Alex, like what do you see as the biggest challenge to hunting as we go forward? What concerns you about the future?
There's I don't know. There's lots of different things. I mean, we had the big non-resident issue this year, and
Whoop, you cut out there, dude. Hello?
Hello?
Hey, man, sorry you cut off there, but you were talking about the non-resident issue, and that's kind of where you cut out.
Yeah, I think that's actually your phone, by the way.
It might be, dude. I mean, I don't know. I live in the freaking forest, man, so. Well,
I live in a canyon, so.
It's one of us. At some point, we lost connection.
It was definitely one of us.
It was big tech censoring us. That's what I think.
But maybe. But I think there's a lot of issues. You know, the good old boys of Idaho. I think they're gonna have to wake up and smell the roses that this state is changing.
Let's talk about that, because you can be. I know you're only 31, but I mean, you're not a spring chicken. You're not like a old salt dog either, like Scott Smid. That guy's old than dirt.
He's going to be so pissed off by the time we're done.
He's going to be fired up. I ain't going to ISB Jamboree anymore, man.
I know.
He's going to whoop my ass.
I'll see you on target. I'll see you on target 1, because I'll probably have a black eye and you will too, so we can be teammates.
Dude, if we tag team him, I think we could take him. I love it, but I want to get back to what you were talking about there for a minute. So I was saying, like, you know, you're not like a spring chicken, but you're not an old timer yet, and you're kind of on that in between point in which you're talking about some of the old salt dogs of Idaho, and this applies, guys. I know a lot of times on this show we get talking about Idaho issues and whatnot, but this is going to apply to every state, every western state specifically, where we have changes. A lot of us are suffering the same fight. We have a huge influx in people moving from back east or from California or whatever. They're coming into our western states, and the state populations are growing like crazy, and we're seeing an influx in hunters and hunter participation in these particular states, where in the rest of the country that participation level is kind of going down or maintaining. In western states it's going up, and in some states it's going up dramatically. And so when we're talking particularly in Idaho, keep in mind that if you're in Colorado, you're dealing with the same thing. If you're in Utah, you're dealing with the same thing. And so that being said, I want to talk about what you just mentioned about how they're going to have to, I don't know how you phrase that, bite the bullet or whatever.
Draw a line in the sand.
Draw a line in the sand. Because I think that a lot of times some guys locally, whether you're in Arizona or Idaho or Montana or wherever, we look at it like, oh man, I've seen in this particular unit a huge influx of non-resident hunters, and I see their plates from all over the place, and it's really frustrating. And I get that in some of the units I hunt, I don't see any non-residents. Like, I don't see any non-residents. And other units that I hunt, I see a ton of non-residents. It's just so dependent on the unit that you're in. And what do you mean by like some of the locals are going to have to get on board with it? Does that make sense? Does that make sense how I asked that?
No, it does. It
Okay.
Actually 100% does. And what that means is, so pre-2020, with the way everything was running in the Idaho fishing game system,
mm-hmm.
If there was 12,815 elk tags, which there is,
yep.
For general tags, it doesn't change.
Yeah.
That number does not change. And all 12,815 of them tags, they all could have been floodgated to one zone in particular.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if it was the Pioneer Zone or the McCall Zone or the Big Desert Zone or the Smoky Bennett Zone. It didn't really honestly matter, because those tags were all sold, and it didn't matter where they went.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that created this issue, because, some of us were seeing lots of non-residents, and some of us were seeing like nothing, like we were living in dreamland.
Yeah.
And so what happened is the residents they threw a fit, and by all means throw a fit. You had every right to on that end of the stick.
Well, because it is frustrating. So I don't want to discount the frustration.
Yeah.
It is frustrating sometimes when you're a dude that's living in small town Idaho or Colorado or whatever. You've been hunting the same area for 40 years, and now all of a sudden you can't go up one single drainage without running into a shitload of out-of-state hunters, and you see their trucks at the trailhead. So I'm not discounting the frustration.
Well, and the frustration was there, and out of all people that can honestly be somewhat neutral into the conversation, I feel like I honestly can.
Uh-huh.
My best friend is a non-resident, and I'm not going to
damn him.
I'm not going to go, oh well, damn him, he's a prick. I can't say that. He's my brother. Like, that's how he is. He's my brother.
He lives down in Salt Lake, huh?
Yep. And I can't say that. But even when my friend that is a non-resident says, oh, dude, we have a problem. Well, obviously there was a problem, and that's because units were getting floodgated. Yeah. That's pretty much what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to that issue, I know I'm going to stir the pot here now for once.
That's what we do on this show, dude.
Yeah, well, it happens. I'm probably going to get some hate mail.
You're good.
I'm all right with it.
A nasty email won't hurt you, I promise.
No, I got pretty thick skin, so it's good. But I never was 100% in agreement with raising the price of non-resident tags.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I was actually in agreement with was dividing and conquering them. And what I mean by that is actually forcing them to put a quota on units, and that's exactly what happened. The part that sucks, now that they've raised those prices, even as a youth kid, I love youth kids. I don't care if you're from Washington or if you're from Idaho or wherever. If you're a youth kid and you want to go hunt, it should be pretty reasonable in price.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. I got a buddy, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I'm getting this right, but his name's Gabe Hinkle, that was coming over from Washington, and he's pretty upset about the youth prices going up because of exactly what you're talking about.
And it's hard to see. I mean, another one is the archery permits and the muzzleloading permits and hound hunting permits. Those prices went so through the roof that it's beyond craziness. Mm-hmm. It's like $1,008. That's not exact math, but to hunt elk over the counter in Idaho, it's like $1,008 now.
Yeah.
That ain't including your gas, or if you get a hotel, who knows what people do. People are crazy, so you don't really know what they're going to do. But your licenses alone, there's a lot of other states now you can go to.
Well, there's the other side to that argument. Personally for me, I'm okay with the non-resident prices going up. Because we, as a state, the state of Idaho was cheap, right? It was, and I've heard it referred to as it's the bargain basement. If you don't draw in Wyoming or Arizona or something, you just go to Idaho. And so I get that aspect of it. And so I was okay with prices going up, with the exception of like my pal Gabe that is talking about, it's tough for him coming from Spokane, Washington, over 10 minutes and he's in Idaho basically. For a youth hunt, that price going up, that does make it difficult for guys. So I'm sympathetic to that cause, but at the same time, I spend a lot of money if I go elk hunting in Montana. Right, and I spend more money if I go to Wyoming out of state, which has actually taken me out of the game for this year for Wyoming. I'm going to hold off just because it's less pricing, more. I want to build more points, but anyway, it's just people need to understand that if you are going out of state, I don't care what state you're going to. Like, I'd love to hunt Oregon, but Jesus, man, the prices over there are ludicrous. I can't afford to go to Oregon, but I know because of my day job and where I travel through Oregon, there is some great freaking elk hunting. It's like Oregon and Washington are both underrated states for Western hunting. They're great states, but man, the prices are out of control. And so it's not like Idaho has taken a huge step. The Idaho Fish and Game didn't do anything out of the norm in terms of Western hunting and non-residents, right? They're within the bounds, and really everybody knows. I don't care what state you're in. It's the non-resident prices that actually cover a huge portion of the revenue that is coming from the hunting side of things, and so. It doesn't mean that the director of Idaho Fish and Game just got a huge pay raise. I think that's a lot of how people look at that. Like, that's not. I just heard your dog, dude.
Oh yeah, that's Dexter.
You were all worried about it before we started, recording, that your dog was going to bark. I'm cool.
Yeah, he's being a dick now.
My fat ass dog is just laying right here. He doesn't make a peep, man. Unless there's a squirrel, he doesn't make him peep. He's too old. Anyway, I don't know. I may have gotten a little bit off topic there, but I don't think that our price increases for regular non-residents, youth hunting aside, was out of line. I think that Idaho needed that to kind of curb some of the non-residents that were coming in because it was cheap to come here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then I can honestly say that I see that side of the story. Some tags I agree with, and others I don't. And
I don't know.
It is expensive, no matter what.
It is. It's super expensive. And one of my goals with doing this show is I do not want hunting to be this rich man's sport. I genuinely don't. You know what I mean? And I often wonder. Oh, sorry, man. We may have
you're good.
A delay there.
You're good.
Yeah.
But it's the thing that what the residents asked, and this is where they're going to have to learn and change, is by putting non-residents into a quota system in order to prove to residents that they are putting non-residents into a 10 or 15% quota system. Eventually, residents will be put into a quota system also. And that's the hard part.
I hope not, but I don't.
But
I'm a
that's
realist.
The only way numbers work.
Yeah,
that's the only way numbers work.
There's a lot to be said for that, and I think that one of the reasons they raised the non-resident prices was to kind of gear up everybody for a quota system down the road. I don't know, because I love the Idaho system. I love the resident Idaho system. I can get a tag anytime I want. I don't have to drop a fortune. It's when I get a deer tag, I can go anywhere in the state to hunt. I specify my zone for elk. I know what zones I want to hunt, and there's some draw tags you can get for the state of Idaho that I put in for, and other tags, and so I get that side of it. I often wonder, for my people down there in Colorado listening to this, like, what do you guys think? Like, you guys get just in it. You think Idaho is bad? Colorado gets pounded by non-residents. I mean, they get pounded, man. I have friends down there that, like, I remember talking to them back in the 90s over the phone, and the discussion of non-resident hunters in Colorado was never an issue back in the 90s. Now that's all they want to talk about. They're like, oh my God, I can't even go anymore where I used to go. And I know that there's nuances to each area in terms of, like, there's ways in Colorado to get away from the crowds, for sure. I know this because my friends do it, right? And I don't know that there is a state that stands out in my mind that is like the perfect system for both residents and non-residents. I don't know that state exists. I know a lot of people say, well, Wyoming has the perfect system. And I would disagree with that. Wyoming is a great state, and they have a lot of great opportunity. Montana actually does a pretty good job. Idaho does a pretty good job. But I know that people listening to this are going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about, Jim. You don't live here. You don't, blah, blah, blah. But so anyway.
And this, like I said, this comes back to the whole, you're never going to please everyone. Mm-hmm. It's not 100%, thing like you're going to make everyone happy. It's a super controversial subject.
It is.
And
super contentious for sure.
It is. It makes people angry. Like, they want to just, like, punch your lights out some days. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say, though, what I see and what I know, the residents better kind of brace themselves a little bit, because there are going to be some drastic changes that happen.
Yeah.
A pick your weapon season is in the talks.
Yeah.
It is in the talks.
I know.
A point system is not. A point system is not the way to roll.
No. Absolutely no point system for the state of Idaho. Let me just put that on record from my perspective. Point systems are shit, and I don't want to see a point system in the state of Idaho.
And that's a personal opinion. Neither do I.
Yeah.
And
it is a personal opinion.
Even some of my greatest of friends will argue that.
Well, I think that one thing that I have a unique experience on is I've lived in multiple states, and include states that have point systems, And I've said this on the show in the past that folks that are advocates for this point system, you guys, I've lived in point system states. I promise you that is not where we want to go in Idaho. I promise you. Alex, I've kept you a long time. We're going a long time here, so your insight is invaluable. It's good. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this episode, and dude, I appreciate you. I just appreciate you coming on.
Well, I appreciate it, and like I told you, anytime I can help somebody learn or teach somebody something, I'm down 100%.
So and that's a good point. You brought that up because I did want to ask you this before we wrap this up, because we're getting down to it. But like, what is your number one piece of advice for somebody getting into? Let's stick to bow hunting specifically. Like, do you have one piece of advice for new bow hunters getting into the sport that you'd offer to those guys and gals?
Now, are you referring to this as actually hunting, or are you referring hunting?
Hunting, man. This is a hunting show.
So one would probably never be give up. Never, ever give up. But also think about your actions. Mm-hmm. If that animal is a sniper, if it can smell you, hear you, see you, you're dead. Yep. And the game is over.
You're done. Yep.
You are done.
Great point.
It's a piece of advice that I got put into my head by one of the best bow hunters in the state.
Yeah.
And that piece of advice will never, ever leave me. It never will.
It's great stuff, man. I've never thought about it that way. Like, you look at it into this adversary way where, the wild game might get the upper hand on you, and like they're the sniper, they're the hunter, they're the, whatever. Their hunt is different than ours. They are hunting to stay alive, and so if they bust you, man, you're toast.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Sure. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Let's keep in touch and get you back on again in the future.
Yeah, I'm down.
Well, thanks again for coming on.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
No, you bet, man. You made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.